Hi again. So this one's just a quick run through of what the RoS Workbook does. We're now living in a world where we've set up the settings already. We've set up our lessons and our learners and our target grades and our ongoing targets. We've been using the workbook for a few days and we've just come into work on a new morning and we've opened the spreadsheet and it looks like this, and it's got all of yesterday's data in there. So what's this telling us? Okay, so each one of these columns here is a record of support. From the period here, from the period row here, you can see that I supported 2 learners for period 1, 2 learners for period 2, 1 learner for period 3, and 1 learner for period 4. So I worked 4 lessons yesterday, but I generated a total of 6 records of support. This status bar at the top on row 3, this is the most important bit. This tells you the status of each of the records of support and what's going on. It works on like a kind of color-coded, like a rainbow system. So it'll start out as red, which means there's some errors, you haven't filled it in properly, blah, 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 blah. And then when it's ready to be sent to the learner, it will go to green. And then once it's been sent to the learner, it will go blue. And once the learner signed it, it will go purple. Purple is the colour you are hoping for. So let's start with the bottom button here, check signatures for today. What this does is it looks at the records of support here and checks to see if the learners have signed them. So yeah, as I left yesterday, they hadn't signed them, but let's check today. Check that one, it's checking each one in turn. No, none of them have been signed. So the next video will talk you through what the signing process looks like for the learner and give you a few tips to try and encourage the learner to sign them and keep up to date with signing them, because if they get a backlog it can become a bit of a pain. But in this instance, no learners have signed their records of support, but that's not a problem. They'll be reminded about those unsigned ones. Okay, so it's a new day, so we're going to click the New Day Cleanup button. It's going to remove this data and it's just going to put today's date at the top. Brilliant, we've got today's date at the top and everything's been cleared down for us. Now we haven't lost all that information, it's still available in the My Files sheet, which gives us a full history of all the records of support that we've generated so far. Okay, so let's say period 1 I'm supporting 2 learners. So I'll generate 2 records of support for period 1. You can see the status bar has gone red for these records of support because we haven't completed them yet. That's fine. Likewise, each of these cells that I fill in, each of these values, I'm not going to go into detail. There's some brief instructions here if you hover over the labels here, but I'm not going to go into an enormous amount of details on this video. I'm just going to show you what the record of support workbook actually does. So let's say 2 learners for period 1. It was a maths lesson, and I supported Ellie, and I supported Marisa. Ellie attended, but Marisa didn't because she was on work experience. Work experience is classed as an authorised absence, whereas pretty much anything else, including doctor's appointments, are classed as unauthorised absence. So this one's gone green already. Because I've put an authorised absence, it doesn't actually need any LSA comments. So this one's gone green already, because it could be sent as is, but we'll carry on completing the data. Ellie attended, she wasn't late. They were both online lessons. Now, the support targets, most of your support targets that you fill in on the record of support will be, you'll end up writing the same thing over and over again for each learner. For Ellie for maths, I'll probably end up writing the same things over and over again for a period of weeks until she's improved on those things, and then I'll change that over and add a few different sort of ongoing support targets. That information is taken from the settings ongoing targets sheet. So what we're entering on the input tab is if there are any specific support targets just for that one lesson, just for that maths lesson. There's a little icon here that will bring up a little help window. You can type anything you want in this box, but there's some common ones here. So I could say follow written instructions. That's a lesson specific one. And at the bottom I'll add my own, which is finish assignment 3. Okay, so we can see it's generated that text for us here. I'll click copy to clipboard, which is like when you do copy and paste. I'll close the window, and then I'll use Control V. For those of you into keyboard shortcuts, I'll use Control V to paste that value into the box. Now, you can't fully see that value, but you can, when you click on the cell, you'll be able to see it in this bar at the top here. If the bar is not big enough, you can drag it down to make it bigger. Alternatively, you can see inside a cell by double clicking it, and it will expand like that. Okay, now for Eloise, it's filled in the most common values for the support provided section. So most commonly in maths, it's numeracy and not literacy, and most commonly for Ellie, I support her with English as an additional language and aided communication. Resources used, well, it was actually an online lesson, wasn't it? So let's say breakout room. And I also created an online whiteboard called Jamboard for us both to use interactively. If you haven't used the Jamboard before, check it out. It's really good. Google it. Understood all requests, completed all targets, reached all targets. We'll say yes, she did, all of them. LSA comments. I'll just type something in here. Okay, so that's done. So if I double click that, you can see what's inside. Ellie was very tired today because she hadn't slept well. Despite that, she worked really well as she seems to enjoy being away from the social pressures of the classroom. Right, I'll just fill in a few more records. Bear with me. Okay, so that's done. So I had period 1 was maths with Ellie and Marisa, although Marisa didn't turn up because she was on work experience. Period 2 was English with John, and period 3 was maths with Yasser, although he didn't turn up. The reason for he didn't turn up was unauthorised absence rather than authorised absence. So authorised absence is just school trips and work experience. So Yasser, I put in the comments, he had a pre-arranged doctor's appointment. Even though it was pre-arranged and he had a doctor's note and everything, that's still classed as an unauthorised absence. And as such, it's still going to ask Yasser for a signature for that lesson. The reason for that is because we still had provision to provide support for him over that lesson. So we still want to show to Yasser's funders, the people that give us money for Yasser's support, that that provision was available. So let's look at the statuses at the top. So it's gone green, which means it's ready to send. This one's different because it's set to auto sign. So record 2, it was an authorised absence because Marisa was on work experience. So it's not going to email Marisa to nag her to sign this one, but it will email Ellie, John and Yasser. Okay, so now they're all green and we're happy with all the data on there, we can click Generate Records of Support. And what that's doing now is it's generating PDF versions of the records of support based on the information that we've provided, and it's saving them in the learners folders on the shared drive that I showed you in the welcome video. Once it's done that, it's going to check whether Ellie, Marisa, not Marisa because it's not going to email her, it's going to check whether Ellie, John or Yasser have any previously unsigned records of support from previous days. That's what it's doing here. It's looking at all the unsigned records of support for previous days and saying, well, have they been signed since? Were they signed overnight? Do we still need to nag them about this? The answer looked like yes in most cases there. And now finally it's emailing the learners, Ellie, John and Yasser. Now in this video, the email addresses are just a test email address, but in the real world, the actual learners will have been emailed. Okay, so now the statuses have changed to blue. We're getting towards purple in the rainbow. This one's already purple because no further action is required. It's been auto-signed. These three are blue because we're still waiting for a signature. Let me show you what the learner's emails actually look like. Okay, so I've got John's email here that he's just received 1 minute ago. It's got the record of support that we've just generated. Here, it was for English and it was period 2. That's why we enter the period numbers on the input tab, just so that John can, when he looks through, he can see which record of support is for which. There's no strict rules about which period number is for which time of day. Just whatever John would best understand period 2 to be, we'll put period 2. Mostly periods 1 and 2 will before lunch, periods 3 and 4 after lunch. But you can negotiate whatever system you want with your learner, whatever makes most sense to them. Now, as you can see for John, he has quite a few records of support from the past that he still hasn't signed yet. So it's recognised this and it's going to nag him about these as well. If he doesn't sign this one, then when we email him again tomorrow, this one will be down in this list here. So it is important that John keeps on top of this. There is a separate video, let me show you that. There is a separate video in LSA menu, help and support, and in the help center there. It talks you through what it looks like at John's end when he gets that email and when he goes on to sign the records of support and how he signs them. And it's got a few tips as well about how to make sure the learners keep on top of it and don't get too far behind with signing their records of support. So what I'll do is I'll quickly go and I'll sign one of these records of support so you can see what it looks like once it's been signed. Okay, I've done that now. So as John, I've signed his record of support. So now if we click check signatures for today, we'll check Ellie's, we'll check John's, and then check Marisa's. You can see John's now is showing up as signed. And the one last thing to mention right now is that if you scroll down to the bottom, now that records of support have been generated, these little hyperlinks have appeared. So you can see what the records of support actually look like. Let's have a look at the signed one. So if I click on that, a little pop-up will appear. Then I click on the pop-up. It will open up the record of support as a PDF in a separate browser tab. And this is the signed one, so there should be a signature at the bottom. There you go. That's John's signature. Okay, perfect. So that one's done, and we're just waiting for Ellie and Yasser to sign theirs as well. Okay, so at this point, before you go and set up all your settings, I do strongly urge you to go back to the videos. So that's LSA menu, help and support, view our user guides, and watch this video next, getting your learners to sign their records of support. This will talk you through what it looked like at the learner's end, and also some tips for you to help your learner to keep on top of signing their records of support, because it's important they don't get behind. All right, thank you.